How's it going, everyone? I'm Autograph, and on this episode of the Untrained Ear, we are going to get into the Carter 6 by Lil Wayne. So, the Carter 6 is the 14th studio album from legendary rapper and lyricist Lil Wayne, aka WEEZY. This is in the genre of rap and R&B. And this album, I'm sad to report, was met to the tune of universal disappointment from virtually all stances, as this project was, truthfully and universally, a step down both lyrically and sonically. As for Wheezy, this album has a mediocre start that peters off in some tracks that are just absolutely deplorable as the album progresses. Some of the lyricism on this project is truthfully so bad that it's laughable, which begs the question, what happened? This is not the look that anyone is used to from Lil Wayne, who is a legendary rapper that is touting multiple hits in his discography that has truthfully been known for his lyricism, especially. It is worth mentioning, of course, that not every track on the album is terrible. And there are still some tracks that are good, although they are sadly in short supply. So on the miserably small list of good that this album had to offer, one of the tracks that's definitely worth talking about is Band from New Orleans. The production on this track is notably a step up from the majority of the album. It's diverse with different elements introduced throughout the track, including lots of awesome synth forays. You get ominous bells and just little ambient noise elements. One of which, for example, would be the chirp of a car lock at a point. Just these little pieces that are injected just to increase the immersion. They're tactfully done. The lyricism is not so terrible in this one that it destroys the immersion for once. The classic Lil Wayne auto-tune hook returns with a vengeance, and for the first time on this album to this point, it kind of makes you want to dance. Yeah. Where is this energy for like the whole rest of this project? This is the sound that people are looking for when they're looking for a Lil Wayne project. We also get speed switch ups on the bars, which again is a classic Wheezy-ism. Gonna hammer this one in. This is the Wayne that people want. Wheezy, you're not listening to this. Probably very few people are. But if this reaches you for some reason, please, with anything you put out from here on out, do more of this, less of like anything else that you had to do on this project for the most part. More Band from New Orleans sound. Less goofy animal reference, whatever the heck the rest of this album was. Okay, Rari, another good track on the album. The Cam Carter feature, Chef's Kiss. It's really decent in terms of the hook being strong. The production is strong enough to be pretty engaging. Unfortunately, the Lil Wayne bars are pretty dang goofy. And are basically the opposite of an enhancement. They're actually pretty detracting in terms of being engaging or helping anything to do with this song whatsoever. It's honestly embarrassing when you are ruining the like good elements of your track. What the heck happened on this album, dude? Okay, with Maria, the Ave Maria operatic feature on this track is a good mesh with the production elements. Both the Wycliffe Jean and the Wheezy bars are solid in this one. Overall, it's a decent track. I have no gripes with it. This is just a solid rap piece overall. It's sad when the good I have to say about this album is like I can tell because it's short and succinct. All right, we're getting into the criticism portion of this, which in the case of this album is basically track breakdown part 2. Sadly, let's start with Sharks, which I think is meant to be one of the like hit singles for this album. Assumedly so because you have not just a Jelly Roll feature, but also a Big Sean feature, which, I mean, these are two big booming names in the music world. And the repetitive lean on the features is not enough to save this track from Lil Wayne, which is horrifying. Truthfully, the Jelly Roll feature was also lackluster. It's the writing is lazy, and the introduction of Jelly Roll into the track is not well executed because it doesn't celebrate his range. When you're keeping Jelly Roll's vocals in the mid range, what are you even doing having him on the track? You paid too much money for that. That's sad. The only redeeming element to this track is the Big Sean feature. His lyrical flows are excellent and well written. The Wayne flows, unfortunately, and on the other hand, have hysterically bad lyricism. The production on this track is uh, almost horrid in terms of how contrasting and corny it comes off because of the Wayne lyricism. I mean, don't give me deep Italian mafia style guitars and then have Little Wayne dropping lines like, don't forget to pray, don't forget your bitch, play pickleball with my dick today. What are we doing, bro? All right, so next you have Island Holiday, which is just an insult to Weezer and everything that they stand for. The horrible auto tune that is employed to directly rip the hook and chorus to the Weezer track cannot manage to hit the notes in a satisfying way. This track is truly a production failure through and through. Every element of this track that has any resemblance of being enjoyable is directly derivative of the Weezer reference, and every adjustment made by Lil Wayne is horrid and actually detracts from the musicality of the track basically across the board. I mean, even the guitar solo that is inserted kind of brainlessly into this track is lacking substance and just completely seems derivative and purposeless. I think that this track is truly and completely a slight to Weezer the band and everything that they stand for, which is sad because they've had an excellent working relationship with Lil Wayne historically and have even featured him on tracks of theirs in the past. And I hope that he asked them before he did anything representing their name, and I hope that perhaps he didn't turn around and show them this track before putting it out into the world. Because if they greenlit this after listening to it, then that is problematic in and of itself. Because this was just horrid and abysmal, basically across the board. Okay, so next we're going to get into what is possibly one of the worst songs I've heard this year, Peanuts to an Elephant, which features probably the worst production on this entire project. And that fact is notably hilarious because this was guest written and co produced by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is universally touted for his work on several musicals, including Hamilton, In the Heights, as well as his contributions to several Disney films, including Moana, Encanto, Frozen. I mean, he's got his hands laced into a lot of things in the musical world. He is celebrated by many as a musical genius. And when it came to this song, I guess maybe he forgot that because the beat was ridiculous in the worst way. In fact, I was completely astounded by how horrible it was. In fact, every element of musicality on this track was just horrible to the extreme extent of how horrible music could be. Um, the injected elephant toots were comical and completely not hitting home for anything that they were trying to represent. The animal references, which were aplenty in the bars of the rapping, were the opposite of hard. And I think they were, in fact, intended to be hard. They did not, in fact, achieve that. Um, I would equate this to an elementary school educational rap song, but worse. In fact, I think if I were to go to an elementary school, I could probably find a better rap track produced by an elementary school student. I think that this track was, for all intents and purposes, a complete and utter musical failure by two very celebrated musicians within the musical sphere. My last piece of criticism is that it seems to have been an overall theme across this album that when it came to lyrical and vocal features, um, all of them tended to be stronger on the tracks than Little Wayne is. In fact, save for one or two, there were not really any features that did not outshine Little Wayne. Uh, the only really major one that I can think of that was like kind of in the same zone would be on Sharks, the Jelly Roll feature, because it's so short and because it was very undersold and underdeveloped. The only thing I could think is maybe that he got like Jelly Roll in there on a discount, and that's why it didn't go as hard. Yeah, overall for an album that I've been anticipating for roughly 4 months, this was extremely disappointing to say the least. Aside from a few tracks, this was on a whole worse than unremarkable. It was straight up laughable. I have very rarely been so disappointed with a piece of music as I was with this album on whole. And so for a baseless rating for this album, I would have to give it a terrible 2.